This is my only advice.
Okay, that was a really bad idea, summoning this guy, Pablo.
Most of us think that they know what a Deadite is. You know, pale face, those milky eyes, or those black veins with that creepy smile that rasps, "Join us," before everything goes to hell. But trust me, that doesn't even scratch the surface when it comes to Deadite, because the Evil Dead universe did not just spend over 4 decades building just one kind of monster. They created a full-blown ecosystem designed to give viewers nightmares. And the deeper you go, the weirder it gets. And nastier. Then again, the Necronomicon Ex-Mortis doesn't exactly create one type of zombie because it changes depending on who is being possessed, when it is happening, which version of the book is involved, and what kind of evil force is pulling the strings. Then again, it all started when Professor Nobi read from the Necronomicon and unleashed the ancient evil tied to the woods in the original, The Evil Dead. And after that, the mythology kept mutating through sequels and comic book crossovers that pushed the franchise way beyond one cabin in the woods. So yeah, in this video, we will go from classic Deadites, the ones that started it all, to skeletal armies, higher demons, then those body-fusing monstrosities, and even crossover horrors like Jason, Marvel characters, and Dracula. So, without wasting any time, let's begin. The Kandarian Demon. So, speaking of the Kandarian Demon, who, by the way, is known by different names like the Humbaba or the Watcher in the Woods, is technically not a Deadite because it is an ancient evil spirit which is responsible for releasing all those Deadite spirits. You can say it's the source that started all the other supernatural occurrences in the world of the living, and fans often mix this up, so I had to clear it right here. This demon existed on Earth long before history was documented, and it was silently watching everything unfold from the shadows as humanity evolved and staked claim over the world it once ruled. And this intervention made it angry, and slowly the demon learned about what happens to the most wicked souls of humans who die. They end up in hell, where they are further corrupted by the evil forces present there. So, this demon, over time, learned how to channel the corrupted souls, which we know now as Deadite, and unleashed them in the world of the living. This demon made its first appearance as this unseen entity in the Evil Dead movie, which came out in 1981 and in 1987. It appeared during the climax of Evil Dead 2, where it had a physical form, and we briefly see it possessing Ash before the sunlight forced it to release him. Along with converting people into Deadites, it has the ability to torment others with hallucinations in their minds, and affect the sound around their victims, which makes them go crazy. Now you might ask, why is it on the list? Well, there is a reason. Because you see, every Deadite type on this list actually came into existence because of the Kandarian Demon. It is like a bedrock for all the types that come next. The classic possessed human Deadite. These are the OG type of Deadite who, you can say, are these undead leech-like spirits who feed on the souls of the living and take possession of their bodies. And once they have taken possession over the living, they somehow manage to manipulate the body of the possessed person, which reflects a more monstrous or inhuman appearance. Some have white pupilless eyes, which is actually quite common, but some Deadites have been found with gold and crimson pupils, solid blue eyes that glow, red bloodshot pupils, or glowing yellow eyes. There are instances where their skin tone also changes, like it's grey or yellow or green. Something gives off this rotten flesh vibe, and yeah, they definitely develop claws for slashing, digging into their target's body, and for climbing walls or ceilings. The first ever Deadite we saw on screen was in the 1981 Evil Dead, and it was Ash's own sister Cheryl Williams, and after her Deadite transformation, it was followed by Scotty, Linda, and Shelley. You will feel confused when they start talking because they retain the voice of the person they were, and when you look at their face, you will think your friend is still there, but they are not. That psychological torment really gets to you. No wonder why they are so sadistic, taunting, and deeply manipulative, because they can fake that human act to get their hand on the next victim. Some even say that they are kind of entry-level Deadite, which makes them easier to identify, but hard to kill without dismembering or sunlight exposure. Deadite possession can happen in several ways. If someone is mortally wounded and then attacked by a Deadite, they can transform after dying from those injuries. Bites or scratches from Deadites can also start the change, and even reciting an incantation from the Necronomicon may trigger transformation. Killer if you can, never boy. the reanimated corpse Deadite. I have to say this version is quite darker than the previous one because here, rather than possessing the living, they try to resurrect a dead person back to life, albeit through a Deadite spirit. You can say this is a very zombie-type version of Deadites. Let me jog your memory a bit. In Evil Dead 2, we see Professor Noby's voice guiding Ash, but he is dead in the grave, and by the end, he comes back to life. Then in Ash vs Evil Dead, when Amanda is severely injured and bleeding out, she comes back to life because the Deadite spirit takes possession of her by force, and she literally couldn't fight it off because, well, she was dying. Poor her. And there was also the time when Ash's father Brock Williams is killed, and that too, by his own possessed Oldsmobile, which is probably why we see him return as a Deadite in Season 2. The key difference between a living and a dead Deadite is that when Deadites don't inhabit a living host, they tend to look more dead and decayed and take time to develop their personalities, and some can't even speak properly or clearly. You can say they are just rotting bodies that have been taken over, with no soul inside to resist. However, I should point out that despite their condition, they continue to remain dangerous and are still a life or death situation, and the best way to deal with them is by dismembering them, which is the most reliable method of stopping them, obviously. The Basement Monster Deadite. I have to say, this one is one of the most visually distinctive subtypes of Deadite, a human host so thoroughly and deeply possessed that the body undergoes relentless physical mutations, and trust me, is beyond those grey or rotting skin and white pupilless eyes. And the perfect example for this is Henrietta Noby from Evil Dead 2, who was the wife of Professor Noby. It was supposed to be a little archaeological exploration in England where they found the Kandarian dagger and the Necronomicon Ex-Mortis, and after returning back home, her husband would translate and everything would go according to routine. Little did they know that discovery unleashed a chain of events that no one could have expected. As Professor Noby started translating the Necronomicon, he unknowingly awakened the Kandarian demon, which wasted no time in attacking Henrietta. After turning into a Deadite, she attacked her husband, who went through a really hard time subduing her before locking her in the basement. Over time, he had turned into this bloated, grotesque, large monster that came to be known as Deadite gooseneck form. Trust me, it was horrifying to watch. Maybe this is why people have said that, unlike normal Deadites, Henrietta's body was physically restructured by possessing evil for such a long time that it was barely human. When she turns in Ash vs Evil, which is set in the 80s timeline, she is seen as more powerful, and I think she has the ability to shift between a human, Deadite and gooseneck forms, but Ash manages to decapitate her. An interesting nod to Henrietta was seen in the 2023 Evil Dead Rise movie, where very early on we see a pizza box with the name Henrietta's Pizza written on it, clearly to remind us of a character that still gives some of us nightmares. The Doppelganger Evil Clone Deadite. The one we are going to talk about now is a type which is very specific and terrifying because it takes the exact physical form of the protagonist. It's like they are this demonic mirror image which shows how vast their powers are. The prime example of this evil clone Deadite is Evil Ash, which was the demonic doppelganger of Ash Williams, our main guy throughout the franchise as we all know. Evil Ash actually first appeared in the second Evil Dead movie as a hallucination, but his physical appearance was in the 1993 Army of Darkness. So, what happened was that Ash was taken back in time when he was trying to banish the Kandarian demon from the 20th century. This evil version was created when he accidentally smashed into a mirror while he was staying in an old windmill, and he smashed it because he thought he saw a stranger standing in the doorway. This created a mini doppelganger until he killed it, which resulted in a full-size mutation. We also got to see something like this in the 2013 Evil Dead, where the abomination takes the form of a demonic version of Mia Allen, who was more vulnerable and susceptible to possession. Then again, it would be wrong to say that Evil Ash was just a possessed body, because he was a sentient Deadite general who raises and commands the skeleton army of the Dark Ones. In the movie, you will also see him leading a siege on Castle Kandar, which proves that he is smart and cunning enough to organise a military campaign.
We've broken through! The castle is ours!
The Skeletal Deadite Army. This type of Deadite is pretty unique to the 1992 movie Army of Darkness, where we see Ash travelling back to medieval England in 1300 AD, and it was at this time Ash realised he wasn't just fighting demons anymore. The game had evolved, and it was war. Now, you might have a question. What are these Skeletal Deadites? Well, They are nothing but spirits possessing ancient bones, which have bleached, by the way, and they are like fully animated, armed with weapons from the medieval era, moving forward as they are commanded. It is safe to say that they retain a little bit of intelligence because they can fight tactically, follow orders, and even lay siege to castles. You can say this type of Deadite is a direct combination of horror and fantasy. You will also see them making dark jokes and engaging in over-the-top cartoonish fights, hilarious moments amidst all those nightmarish scenes. But when they come together in large numbers, they can still pose a real danger. None of this would have happened if Ash hadn't botched the classic phrase Klaatu Barada Nikto, which accidentally unleashed the Necronomicon's full power, giving rise to a literal military force. Here's an interesting fact. The classic phrase which Ash botched was actually borrowed from the 1951 movie The Day the Earth Stood Still, which some might miss. Other than that, we've seen various forms of this type of Deadite in comics, and some have expanded armies which wield sorcerer magician type of Deadites. And get this, they have some sort of ranking system, which is kind of unexpected. The Nature Deadite, Demonic Tree. The next type we will be talking about is one of the most iconic repetitive elements from the franchise. A Deadite force so powerful that it can infest and animate plant life. And when parts of plants like roots, vines or trees are animated, they are used as weapons or instruments for possession. This is the demonic tree which the Kandarian demon has already taken possession of, and it made its appearance in the first 2 Evil Dead movies, even in the 2013 remake and the second season of Ash vs Evil Dead Season 2. The tree ensnares its victims with twisting branches and vines, savagely maiming them. Those who survive such attacks often become possessed by dark forces, and yes, just like other objects influenced by evil spirits, this tree also appears to be made of flesh and is capable of bleeding. In the first one, we see the tree violently attack Cheryl Williams, leading to her possession and a subsequent assault on Linda, which resulted in Linda also becoming possessed, and later, the tree severely injures Scotty, which transforms him into a Deadite, a creature under the tree's control. Bobby Joe, who was part of another group that visited the cabin, faced a similar attack as Cheryl, but here, instead of being assaulted, she was sadly consumed by the tree. Then in the 2013 Evil Dead, the vines are mainly used initially for possessing Mia, and then the Taker of Souls sends a black root into her body. You won't even suspect it's the demonic tree until it attacks, because it appears so normal. But when it attacks, it changes into that demonic appearance. It is said that in Evil Dead Hail to the King, the tree has a more nightmarish demonic appearance compared to other movies. So yeah, if you think you are alone in the woods, think again, because someone is out there to hunt you down to possess you. The Possessed Animal Deadite. Okay, this is one of those underappreciated subtypes, and I don't think anybody could have guessed it sits right between the nature type Deadite and the object type of Deadite. And it is none other than the Possessed Animal Deadite. What it actually is that the Kandarian demon takes over living animals and uses them as attack vectors. The classic example of this is when the mounted deer head comes to life and mocks Ash in Season 1 of Ash vs Evil Dead, and that scene was such fun, but it was genuinely an unsettling moment. That's not all, the franchise also includes a scene where an elk becomes possessed and attacks, along with several moments where a demon uses birds and other animals to spy on or attack people. Now this possession is a bit different from object possession because here, the animal Deadites still retain their biological instincts as they scratch, bite, and sometimes even stalk with predatory purpose, albeit they are supernatural in nature. When you come across something like this, know that those are early warning signals stating that the Kandarian demon is around the area. Then again, these types of Deadites are usually not that dangerous, but they are really good at surprising viewers with their jump scares, and serve as a reminder that evil can come in many different forms, not just in the shape of humans.
No. Back off, not you. Come on, not
The object/vehicle Deadite. If we didn't bring the next type on our list, I don't think people would have known about it, because it is discussed so less, but trust me, they are a terrifying Deadite because this one is possessing non-living objects rather than living hosts. This tells us a lot. You know, it tells us how broad an influence the Kandarian demon has that it can take control over vehicles, machines, and even toys. Don't worry, I have some examples. Remember that 1973, the classic Oldsmobile Delta 88, Ash's beloved car? It was completely possessed in the second season of Ash vs Evil Dead. So the car goes totally rogue and kills Ash's father, Brock Williams, by running him down. And why did this possession have such an impact? Well, the Delta car has been this recurring character across the franchise, so of course fans feel deeply about his possession. It's not just cars, because in Season 1 of Ash vs Evil Dead, Pablo encounters a small Deadite possessed doll that evolves into a dangerous little monster before he smashes it, of course. It is said in the OG trilogy, the Kandarian demon takes possession of the cabin in the woods, which makes it able to slam doors, move objects, and make lights flicker. All in all, these inanimate Deadites are utterly unpredictable. You can't reason with their so-called host because it feels no pain, grows no weary, and has no soul left to resist. The higher demon Deadite. Now this is something new and quite frightening to look at, and it tells us that not all demons in the franchise are standard Deadites, because they introduced these ancient demons that are way more powerful. The prime example of this is Elegos, who is described as someone who possesses knowledge of hidden things, which is why he is also called the Demon of the Mindscape. He was summoned from Necronomicon in the world of the living in the year 2015, when Ash had reawakened Deadites yet again and wanted to question him on how to stop it once and for all, since he is so knowledgeable. He has abilities you don't find in normal Deadites, because he can teleport from one location to another in seconds, and can also push or move around objects without physically holding them. If there is someone closer to him, he can read their minds, and can also disconnect the veins inside a target's brain. But then again, he has to be closer to the target. I remember he used this trick on Ash and Pablo after escaping the summoning circle. In an extended arc, we see Elegos taking over Kelly Maxwell, and that makes it so difficult to banish. But once Kelly is freed from the higher demon, she still had some residual effects like sensitivity and some sort of supernatural resilience, which means that lengthy contact with the higher demon changes victims in ways normal possession did not. And a difference we see here is that these demons kind of represent the intelligent tier of Deadite hierarchy, where an OG Deadite would mock and slash, higher demons would actually scheme, manipulate and corrupt from the inside. The Dark Ones. The Dark Ones are the authors of evil in simple words, because they are these mysterious ancient creatures who, once upon a time, ruled the earth with dark magic and an army of Deadites. This means that the Dark Ones are not Deadite, they are the reason why they exist. They were banished to another realm, but even there, they caused trouble in the human world by leaving behind the infamous book, the Necronomicon Ex-Mortis. They were first mentioned in the opening scene of Evil Dead 2, and later made appearances in various forms across the franchise. And in the first episode of Ash vs Evil Dead, we come across this character named Ruby, who is played by actress Lucy Lawless, who is actually a Dark One. And that's not all, she's also the author of Necronomicon Ex-Mortis. She used the Ruby name and almost spent 3 decades hunting the book and Ash Williams. In the beginning, the Dark One was a fierce adversary of Williams and his little group called the Ghost Beaters, but we do see her changing her allegiance when Baal, her former lover, escaped to the living world and stirred chaos in the small town of Elk Grove, which made their residents angry as well as fearful. But good things don't last long, so during the journey back to the early 1980s, the Dark One met her younger self and was killed, and this led to a new distinct version of events where she took on the identity of Rebecca Prevet, who was a school counsellor and once again became an enemy of Ash and his friends. This tells us that she is not a Deadite, but has the ability to control, create, and in situations she can weaponize them. The Demon Spawn. You can say that the Demon Spawn is something new, yet something creative introduced in the franchise, especially in the second season of Ash vs Evil Dead. They are actually the children of the Dark One Ruby and the Demon Baal, and they are summoned using spells found in the Ex-Mortis, and they are often considered to be Ruby's henchmen. Now, let me clarify something. When I say they are children of Ruby and Baal, I don't mean biologically. They are created using their combined dark magic. And I must say, they are quite unpredictable, because in the beginning, they sided with Ruby. When she summoned more in the living world, some of them started looking for the hidden Necronomicon in an effort to bring back their father, Baal, which is why Ruby had to form alliance with Ash Williams, Pablo Simon Bolivar, and Kelly Maxwell, and so that they can help her manage her troublesome children at the Elk Grove Crematorium. The trio face off against each of Ruby's offspring one by one, and mind you, they used a special dagger, the Kandarian dagger, to defeat them quickly. Although Ruby felt sad about losing her children, she ultimately believed that their defeat was the right choice for everyone involved. These spawns have some of the weirdest yet unique abilities, like they can transform and mimic other people's shadows as a form of attack, which will most likely catch most of the people off guard. If they are injured while fighting, they have the ability to repair their flesh. They can only be killed by total destruction from a supernatural weapon, and their flexible bodies and exceptional climbing skills give them remarkable mobility. Pablo as the living Necronomicon, the fleshbook type. The next one is a bit tragic because by now we all know Deadites exist because of the Necronomicon book, so imagine a person becoming that terrifying book as a living entity. That's some next level crazy, but we do see this in the second season and it happens to Pablo Simon Bolivar. At one point in the series, the book takes possession of Pablo and his blood is used to create new pages for the book, while Ruby is trying her best to destroy the old pages. But things are not looking good because the creatures created through Pablo's possession attack Ash, Kelly and Pablo, so they decided to return to Ash's hometown to end this evil force once and for all. It is during this time that Pablo starts having hallucinations and disturbing visions, and sometimes strange markings show up in his body. That's the Necronomicon talking, and slowly it is building a link between them, which is warned by Ruby. This makes him the most powerful and dangerous object in the Evil Dead universe, while he's still a living breathing person. Pablo is mortally wounded by Baal and appears to die, but returns to life after Baal and the Necronomicon are banished to hell following their trip to the past. He is later attacked again and nearly dies, until a vision of his ancestors urges him to accept his destiny. Embracing their guidance, he becomes the Brujo, a powerful magical practitioner, and is revived. In the end, we can say that if the evil book had not been possessed, and if he hadn't died and come back to life, then he wouldn't have gained back his humanity and power, and now, with the knowledge of the Necronomicon itself, since he lived and survived that nightmare, he can fight evil, and that makes him an important character. The Taker of Souls strain, the Abomination, Evil Dead 2013 universe. When director Fede Alvarez directed the 2013 Evil Dead movie, he introduced a different variant of Deadite called the Taker of Souls, who are darker, more malicious, but I should add, not on the Kandarian demon level, but different. This demonic entity feeds on human souls, and the interesting part is that nobody knows its age, but it has been present because they were mentioned in several cultures throughout history, and each culture has a different name for this evil entity. Some call it Satan, some Shaitan, Azathoth, Baal, Iblis, and whatnot. According to sources, Takers of Souls emerged in the US sometime around the 21st century, and they were summoned for some unknown reason, and during that time, the demon managed to possess a young girl with a Deadite spirit who went on a violent spree. However, after some time, the demon went into hibernative state again for unknown reasons. After this, it was Eric who foolishly read aloud the spells which reawakened the Takers of Souls, and they made their presence known to Mia Allen, who was trying to recover from heroin addiction. She thought she was hallucinating, which made her so scared because she thought she was losing her mind, which is why she ran away from the cabin, but the Takers of Souls interrupted her and wrecked her car. She had to run into the deeper parts of the woods. This is when, in the movie, they reveal the final boss of the film, the Abomination, which will come to life once he is satisfied with the Takers of Souls feast and blood rain starts falling. However, by the end of the movie, Mia is able to kill it with a chainsaw, making her one of the few protagonists who has been able to survive the possession in the franchise. One thing this movie did differently was that instead of dismemberment, which actually stopped the possession, they showed that burning the host's body can also stop it, and we only see this here, so don't get confused if it never comes, okay? The Marauder, the Body Merger Deadite, 2023 Evil Dead Rise. The 2023 Evil Dead Rise movie definitely takes the Deadites into a whole new level with its visually spectacular yet nightmarish Deadite form, the Marauder, which is what director Lee Cronin envisioned. And yeah, it's completely different from the 2013 The Abomination. So this monster is this unholy monstrosity that merges with other Deadites to become this multi-limbed creature after tearing into each other. Very sensitive for people who can't stomach body horror. The mother Deadite, who is Ellie, is the one who leads them after the merging and uses her Deadite children Bridget and Danny as an extension of the chaos she is making and also to make her stronger. After becoming one, we see them chasing Cassie and Beth through a parking garage. Since the monster is formed with Ellie and her kids, it must indicate that this monster is more focused on corrupting family bonds, which is why we see it having this obsession on Ellie's sister Beth, her unborn child, and Ellie's daughter Cassie, but in the end, it just wants to spread utter chaos mixed with terror. Something similar to this body emerging ability had appeared in one of the Army of Darkness comic arcs, where the Deadites at a haunted graveyard licked blood off the pages from the Necronomicon, after which they merged into a giant doppelganger of Ash himself. I have to say, this was one of the most terrifying demonic monsters from Sam Raimi's franchise. Not just because of that body horror, but also because it is quite difficult to destroy it. Beth literally had to use a chainsaw to cut through the Marauder's limbs, after which she shoved it into a wood chipper to stop the terror, even if it was for a while. Because I'm sure, by the end of the movie, we know the terror isn't over yet, because they have found a new host, Jessica. The crossover Deadite, Jason Voorhees as a Deadite. Comics. I think we are all familiar with Jason Voorhees as this hockey mask killer from Friday the 13th, but who would have thought he might be somehow connected to the Evil Dead universe, am I right? In 2007's Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash, there is this unexpected crossover between Evil Dead, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street, and this was published as a 6-issue limited comic book series by DC's Wildstorm and Dynamite. The comic is set 5 years after Freddy vs. Jason and 16 years after Army of Darkness, and we see that Freddy's spirit is trapped inside Jason's mind, which is why he wants to use the Necronomicon Ex-Mortis to bring himself back after he's beheaded. Freddy, with Jason's help, tracks down the haunted tome, which soon brings him in contact with the one and only Ash Williams. Beneath Camp Crystal Lake lies the buried book that Freddy taps into to amplify his power. Using it, he resurrects every victim from Friday the 13th films as Deadites, turning them into a controlled army under his command. But here is the catch. Jason is not technically possessed as a standard Deadite because there are some connections that imply that Jason's supernatural coming back to life and near invincibility are kind of linked to Deadite-like forces. If we go back to the 1993 movie, you can spot the Necronomicon in Pamela Voorhees' old house, and the director has also unofficially made it known that it was his intention that his mother used the Necronomicon to bring back Jason. But there were some issues over studio rights, which is why it was never mentioned earlier, but now it's definitely a crossover canon. At the end of the comic series, Ash is able to defeat Freddy, after which he banishes him to the Deadite dimensions and locks Jason and the evil book beneath the frozen crystal lake. The Marvel Universe Deadite, the zombie Deadite hybrid. Marvel has some of the most unexpected collabs, and one of them is the 2007 Deadite crossover we see in Marvel Zombies vs. the Army of Darkness, which is a short 5-issue comic. Obviously, it is a limited series. It is said that this serves as the origin story for the entire Marvel Zombies universe, which is introduced in the Ultimate Fantastic Four's crossover storyline published around 2005. And that's not all. It's a direct sequel to Dynamite's Army of Darkness series, The Death of Ash. What happens here is that Ash from Earth 818793 is somehow brought into this alternate reality, which turns out to be Earth 2149, aka the Marvel Zombies universe. And here you name any superhero from Spider-Man, Iron Man to Captain America, the Hulk, and so many others are zombie infected who are consuming human flesh. After looking at so many places, Ash has finally located the Necronomicon because he thinks this is a Deadite invasion, but the book tells him he cannot stop the zombie plague because zombies are not Deadites, and the book itself confirms that the zombie invasion and the rise of the Dead Army, aka the Deadite invasion, are actually happening around the same time, but they are totally separate. So, Ash threatens the book and says the human supplies are running low, so the zombies might eat him since he's bound in human flesh, and hearing that, the Necronomicon decides to cooperate with Ash. And under William's order, the book resurrects zombie victims as Deadites, which distracts the zombies long enough so that the survivors can escape to a safer alternate reality. This is the only time you will see the Necronomicon being used as a countermeasure other than a weapon, and that's not even the most interesting part, because in the end, when the zombies discover the Necronomicon, they reveal that they would never eat a book. So zombie Wolverine hands the book to zombie Hulk to use it as a toilet paper, and this exactly was so unexpected. I can only imagine the horrified look on Necronomicon's face, albeit if he could make a face after being played so bad by Ash. The Deadite Dracula, the final crossover, comics. Last but not least, we have the most unforeseen crossover in issue 6 of Army of Darkness, Furious Roads, where Ash goes against Dracula, who is resurrected back to life again when Dr. Heinrich's assistant removed the silver cross from Dracula's head. Dr. Heinrich starts working with Dracula, who tells him to find the Chosen One, so that he can kill the only person who has the power to stop him. While the Doctor goes for a search, Dracula starts creating an army of monsters, which includes Frankenstein's monster, werewolves, and even mummies from Egypt, which include Evil Ash. Remember him? Ash's evil clone. The Necronomicon doesn't have much function here other than working as a gateway to the past and present, but this arc is significant chronologically because this story comes right before another big comic book crossover, which is Marvel Zombies vs. the Army of Darkness, one we talked about earlier. In this part, Ash is battling Dracula, who is ultimately stabbed by her daughter Eva in the chest with the spike of crucifixion, which kills both him and his Army of Darkness, which he recruited, and then Ash gets pulled into the Marvel Zombies universe, so this moment becomes a key connection between two of the biggest stories in the comic series. So, in the end, this list tells us a lot, but it also gives us the reason why this mythos has not only survived, but is thriving nightmarishly, and all thanks goes to the Kandarian demon. The list also proves that the Kandarian demon is not one of a kind, and is like an engine of chaos that adapts to its environment nicely. I wish I had that kind of adaptability, and I say this because it is capable of possessing not only humans, but also corpses, animals, trees, toys, and even cars. And it doesn't stop at one universe. Another thing that makes Deadites so disturbing is the fact that they don't just kill, they impersonate and wear the face of your loved ones, all while using your memories to torment you and break you. It seems that the Book of the Dead has no final page, and as long as someone is foolish enough to open and read the words out loud, there will always be a new type of evil waiting to come out and unleash terror. Anyways, that was a haunting note, but we want to know from you guys which Deadite type scares you the most. Is it the classic human host, or Lee Cronin's the Marauder, the demonic tree, or the Abomination? And do you think the franchise should keep smashing into more universes as it did in the comics, or should it stay focused on the cabin, the trees, and the Deadlands? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Until next time, thanks for watching.